Hello, everybody. Hope everyone's enjoying InfoComm. It's a great show. I'm Jeff Weitzman, Managing Director of Navori Labs. A few things that we're going to talk about today. So we have about 15 minutes, so we're going to try to cover a lot of ground in a little bit of time. A few takeaways that you could expect from today is, first, a little bit of background and understanding more about Navori, who we are, what we do. Second, you'll understand why are we here, why did Sony invite us, what role do we play, and a little bit about the relationship with Sony. And then lastly, we're going to try to touch on some high-level subjects about how the use of data has evolved in digital signage and how AI is transforming a little bit the way we think about the market and the business opportunities that we realize from that. So first, Navori. Who are we? Navori is a digital signage software company. We were founded in 1997, so it's about 25 years we've been in business. We're a global organization. We're headquartered in Lausanne, Switzerland. I'm actually out of Montreal, Canada. That's where our North American HQ is. So you can imagine it's a little bit hot here for me. As an organization, we've sold hundreds of thousands of licenses globally. We've worked on a lot of different types of projects. If you think about it, at our core, what we do is we manage, we deliver, and we play content and data on screens. That is what we do. So data has a big component there. And in order to survive and thrive as a software company, the most important thing is research and development. It's R&D, it's innovation. So the heart of our company is really in the engineering team, and the focus is always on how do we continue to create new levers in the market that give our customers, which are resellers, distributors, end users, new tools in order to go to market and convert deals. So some of that, if you want to think about Navori, some of our innovations are, we were the first in the market to develop a fully web-based user interface. We were the first to launch a fully mobile UI for digital signage. We were the first to develop a native engine, and this is back in 2013, that runs on Android. And I want to really note that point, because that's very important to the relationship with Sony. We're going to talk about Android, the importance of Android, and why what's good about Android in digital signage, and how does that relate to the relationship with Navori and Sony. Lastly, we were also the first to launch a fully integrated marketing analytics suite into our platform. So we actually have a full-blown AI platform that can generate information about the physical space, foot traffic, analytics, but it can also use that data to drive and curate content in the digital signage. So we're going to talk a little bit more on where we started and how we got to that point. So as a general rule, Navori, as you can see, is always focused on what's coming next. So we do put roughly about 20% of our top-line revenue into research and development every year. And it really is about looking at the market, studying the trends, looking at what technology is available now that wasn't before, and also client feedback. You can't replace what's the market telling us and where should we go with it. So that's a little bit about us. Now let's talk about the relationship with Sony. So in fact, we have an interesting history. The first notable thing we did with Sony was actually in 2004. And in 2004, Navori actually launched a 700-player network inside of a grocery chain with a large company that was actually based in Belgium. So in 2004, 700 screens was actually quite a bit. Today, maybe it's not as impactful, but at the time, that was quite significant. And then fast forward many years later, here we are again with Sony. And one of the reasons is we got together, we looked at the market, and we saw a gap. And the gap that we saw is that there seemed to be a belief that system-on-chip displays couldn't achieve the same level of performance as an external media player. And that's really a fallacy, because a system-on-chip display is truly just a computer built into a screen. So you have to look at what are the components, what is the power, what are the capabilities of that machine, not just the fact that it's built into the display, because that's kind of one way or the other. So Sony actually launched their technology on Android, and when we saw that, we got very excited, because we wish to bring to the market a solution where customers can expect the same level of performance, reliability, and quality that they would expect from any other signage player. And that was something that was definitely lacking with various other SoC solutions and various software player engines. So when we think about Navori and Sony together, we do see those things in common. When I think of a display and I think of quality, the first one that comes to mind is Sony. They have the best picture, the best color. For Navori, when we think of our own platform, we think of quality in terms of playback. We believe in seamless transitions, broadcast type of flow with the media. When it comes to reliability, system on chip doesn't fail. The warranty is going to match the warranty of the display. And when you think about software, Navori engine is built to last. We've been around for 25 years, which really explains why I'm here today. So reliability is key. And lastly, performance. So what's interesting with Android is you could actually build your software, and without getting too technical, what you could do is you could build a native application. And a native application means your development team has the freedom to develop in languages such as C++ and languages that give you full access to the system, which means we could quite literally build the top-of-the-line engine to run on their system, whereas other times we're limited to web-based languages, which are more restrictive in terms of how we access resources, how we render content, and then how that performs. So we saw an opportunity where we could deliver a best-in-class solution by coming together, so that is what we did. Now we're going to move the conversation to a little bit about the evolution of using data and digital signage and how that's transforming a little bit the opportunity in the market today. So I like to break it down almost into 3 tiers. So if you think of the first tier of using data and digital signage, which is still very common today, you have what I'll call this idea of fixed and dynamic data. And for the purposes of what we're going to talk about, data is going to be considered any attribute or value that I'm either using to make a decision on what should be played or where it should be played, or a value or an attribute that I'm going to display as a metric on the screen. So in tier 1, you have things like fixed attributes. So think of things like tags or validity periods, which are timelines that you could attach to content, so you could tell it under what fixed conditions, meaning it doesn't change. So if something is portrait or it's landscape, if something's in a lobby or a break room, if something is on the West Coast or the East Coast. These are things that if you add that attribute, you could consider that they're always true. Whereas something dynamic might be, when is a flight arriving? What's the bus schedule? What were my sales of the day? How many calls did I take? So these are values that are always changing and can't actually be known in advance. So in tier 1 digital signage, you've got the ability to use fixed data to determine what content will play when and where, and we use this to try to reach the right audience. So go back to the old adage, we want to get the right content to the right person at the right time, but you're really guessing because you're using only fixed components for that. And then for the dynamic side, we can display the values on the screen, but it's really up to the audience to try to interpret that and take something valuable from it. So that brings us to tier 2 of using data. So in tier 2, we're not just doing fixed and dynamic, we're actually taking some of that dynamic data and we're adding logic statements into the content. So we're actually able to create what I'll call the beginning of smart content. So smart content is definitely part of what is driving the future of communicating with digital signage, because people want something that's relevant to them. So what that means is if I take a weather feed, instead of just showing that it's 90 degrees and it's hot outside, I may actually put something that is, if I'm Starbucks, I may put a Frappuccino versus when I'm back home, maybe they're going to show me something with steam coming out because they want to warm up. But it's really about interpreting the data and letting the data drive the decision on what content is going to play. So that's really tier 2. And then you come to tier 3. So tier 3 is interesting because now we're thinking, okay, we've got smart content. It can be driven by rules. It's fully dynamic. And we're really targeting people based on the context. So what is showing is actually related directly to what is happening right now. So how can we augment that? How could we do better? That is where AI starts to play a role. And then specifically, I'm going to talk to you about computer vision. But what that does is it gives me a new set of data. And that set of data actually tells me what's happening in that physical space right now. How many people are there? How many unique visitors? And then I can actually use that data, or gender profile, or age, and I can use that data to then target a message to a specific audience. So when you think about what you want to measure and what data you want to get, I always like to take a lesson from the virtual world. So why do we want to measure the physical space? Well, it's because we want to understand not just who's there, but what's the behavior, when is the best time to target something, and how do we ensure they get the right message? So if you think about online, where you are used to optimizing your website, or you're used to online marketing campaigns, or measuring how you're performing, it's the same idea. So if you go to a website and you want to measure how good it is, you're going to look at what's your total traffic, what are your unique visitors, what links are people clicking on, how long is someone staying on a certain page, if they land on a certain item, are they more likely to fill out a form and generate a lead, or if you're attached to an e-com system, if they land on a certain page, are they more likely to buy a certain product? And all this is extremely good because it's measurable, and you can know it very easily. The problem in the physical world, that doesn't exist in the same way, which is why we need new technology in order to really understand and get that data, in order to be able to do what I'm going to call tier 3 smart content, which is drive contextualized information that is quite literally selected for you or your profile. So for us, that is where AI has brought us. And it's important because if you think of digital signage as a market, and I'm going to try to go full circle here because I know we've got limited time, but digital signage has entered a stage where we're maturing, which means there's more and more players. People are looking for ways to create more value and to differentiate. So end users need more value from their signage in order to justify continuing to grow their networks and spend more money. Resellers need new differentiators in order to be able to target those end users and show their worth and have new value add on top of what they're doing in order to have a compelling case to use them and their service. But the industry as a whole needs something that's curving it and stepping up to another level. And that's where smart content driven by AI really is playing the critical role. And it's starting to think about digital signage not just as the screen playing content, but as part of an overall experience and component of the physical space. And once you start to think about it that way, now we get to move from the maturing market of digital signage into the emerging market that's about to enter a stage of growth of AI and computer vision. And when you blend that together, it creates a whole new opportunity for digital signage, for people in the digital signage space and anyone targeting the market. So we believe that that's a major part of how the future is going to be molded and going to transform. And when you think about how do we keep this industry progressing forward, this is obviously going to be a big part of it. So what's our commitment to the market? So I'm going to try to wrap up here. As we look at Sony and the relationship we have with them, so obviously all 3 of these tiers today, well, guess what? We could do it on the Sony screen. So that's pretty great as a starting point. But what we're also committing to is making sure that moving forward, we're continuing to develop, maintain, and have a complete solution on the Sony platform for years to come. Our guarantee is to continue to innovate, study the market, ensure that we're watching the trends, and make sure that we absolutely are always delivering a best-in-class product and reaching that initial goal that we set out for, which is to give the market something that they should expect from a brand like Sony and a brand like Navori. We all believe in quality, performance, reliability, and the market should expect nothing less. So I appreciate your time. Thank you very much, and hopefully we touched on some high-level subjects that are interesting. So thank you.